Welcome to Subject Soup. What if the ocean you depend on for life, food, and balance is slowly becoming a radioactive time bomb? Dive into the pressing controversy of Japan's decision to release treated radioactive water into the Pacific and uncover the truths that could reshape the future of our planet. Why is Japan still dumping radioactive water into the ocean? Alright, let's talk about one of the most debated environmental issues in recent years, Japan releasing treated radioactive water into the ocean. If you've heard about this and thought, wait, what? Why are they doing that? You're not alone. It's a complicated situation that started over a decade ago and still has people worldwide talking, debating, and, let's be honest, worrying. So, let's break it down step by step. To set the stage, we need to rewind to March 2011, when Japan experienced one of the most powerful earthquakes in its history, followed by a devastating tsunami. The tsunami didn't just flood towns, it smashed into the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant, causing one of the worst nuclear disasters since Chernobyl. The plant's cooling systems failed, the reactors overheated, and radioactive materials leaked out. Not ideal. To prevent further meltdowns, workers started pumping water into the reactors to cool them down. The problem? That water became highly contaminated with radioactive particles. It couldn't just be dumped out back then, so they started storing it in massive tanks on site. Fast forward 12 years, and now there are over 1,000 tanks holding more than 1.3 million tons of contaminated water. Picture the size of 500 Olympic swimming pools filled to the brim. That's how much water we're talking about. Here's the catch. Those tanks are not just running out of space, but they're also old. The longer they sit there, the higher the risk of leaks. On top of that, Japan needs to make room to fully dismantle the damaged reactors and clean up the plant. So, after years of debating, the Japanese government decided on a controversial solution: treat the water and release it into the Pacific Ocean. The big question is, why is dumping treated water into the ocean their best option? For starters, they've run out of storage space at the Fukushima site, and building more tanks isn't a long-term fix. Those tanks take up valuable space that's needed for the plant's decommissioning process. Plus, keeping millions of tons of radioactive water in aging tanks isn't exactly a safe long-term strategy. Another reason is the sheer cost and practicality of other solutions. Transporting or storing the water indefinitely would be astronomically expensive and might just delay the inevitable. Evaporating the water into the atmosphere is another idea that's been floated, but it comes with its own risks and doesn't necessarily solve the problem, it just moves it elsewhere. Japan's government and the Tokyo Electric Power Company, which manages the Fukushima site, argue that releasing the water into the ocean is the safest and most feasible solution. They also point out that this isn't new. Other countries with nuclear plants release treated water containing radioactive elements like tritium into the ocean all the time. The difference here is the scale and the fact that Fukushima's water comes with a lot of public distrust. To make this plan happen, Japan has been treating the water through a system called ALPS, or the Advanced Liquid Processing System. This system removes most radioactive contaminants, leaving only tritium, a form of radioactive hydrogen. The water is then diluted to reduce tritium levels to well below international safety standards before it's released. Sounds good on paper, right? Well, not everyone agrees. This is where things get heated. Japan insists that the treated water is safe to release, and the International Atomic Energy Agency, basically the world's nuclear safety referee, backs them up. The IAEA conducted an independent review and said Japan's plan meets global safety standards. According to scientists, tritium, the remaining radioactive element, is relatively harmless in small amounts. It doesn't build up in the human body, and its radiation levels are much lower than other radioactive materials. Still, critics are skeptical. While tritium might be less dangerous, there's a lot we don't fully understand about its long-term impact on marine ecosystems. Some environmental groups argue that even low levels of radiation can accumulate in marine life over time, potentially affecting the food chain. For people who live off the ocean, fishermen, seafood industries, and coastal communities, that's a scary thought. Adding to the distrust is the history of the Fukushima disaster itself. Many people feel that TEPCO and the Japanese government weren't entirely transparent in the early days of the crisis, so it's hard to take them at their word now. Even if the science checks out, the emotional and cultural concerns surrounding the ocean, especially in Japan, a country with a deep connection to the sea, can't be ignored. And let's not forget public perception. It doesn't matter how many scientists say, it's fine, if people are scared, the damage to trust and industries like fishing is already done. For example, countries like China and South Korea have raised strong objections to the plan, with China even banning Japanese seafood imports outright. The backlash isn't just local, it's gone global. China has been one of the most vocal critics, accusing Japan of irresponsibility and imposing an outright ban on Japanese seafood imports. For a country that exports a lot of fish, that's a huge economic blow. South Korea, while initially critical, has softened its stance after getting more reassurances from Japan, but public protests there are still a thing. Meanwhile, Japan is trying to win over skeptics by inviting international experts to monitor the process. They've even agreed to let Chinese scientists be part of the oversight, hoping that transparency will ease tensions. Whether that works remains to be seen, but it's a smart move politically. Even within Japan, reactions are mixed. Some coastal communities support the release because they see it as necessary for moving forward with the cleanup, while others, especially fishermen, are worried it will devastate their livelihoods. Fishermen have spent years rebuilding trust with consumers, and they fear this will undo all their hard work. On the flip side, some scientists and nuclear experts argue that the backlash is overblown. They say the science is clear, and this level of tritium in the water poses no real harm. But when emotions, history, and economics are involved, science alone doesn't always win the argument. The water releases have already begun, and they're not stopping anytime soon. This isn't a one-time event, it's going to take decades to release all that water, with regular monitoring along the way. Japan has promised to keep the process transparent and share data with the world to prove it's being done safely. But let's be real, even if everything goes perfectly, the stigma is going to stick around for a while. It's not just about the science, it's about trust, and that's a lot harder to rebuild. Japan has a long road ahead to convince the world, especially its neighbors, that this was the right move. This story also raises bigger questions about how we handle nuclear waste globally. Fukushima's water problem might be unique in its scale, but it's not the only place where treated radioactive water ends up in the ocean. If nothing else, this should push us to think harder about the future of nuclear energy and its environmental trade-offs. In the end, Japan's decision to release this water into the ocean might be the least bad option they have, but it's far from a perfect solution. It's a reminder that the fallout from nuclear disasters, literal and figurative, lasts for decades. Let's hope the world is paying attention and learning from this. What do you think? Is Japan handling this responsibly, or is there a better way they could have approached it? Let's talk about it. If you've been enjoying the content and finding it helpful or interesting, I'd love to have you join our community by subscribing to the channel. It's completely free and helps the channel grow so I can keep bringing you even more awesome content. No pressure, but your support means the world to me. Thank you for watching, I appreciate you.